Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Snakes on the Brain, the not-so-weekly show where a guy is on a podcast by himself just screaming his thoughts to the world. Oh, no! But in this case, we are talking about reptiles. And in this case, a couple things happened this weekend. So first of all, a comment was left on one of my YouTube videos. It was the 5 beginner snake video. And the comment was surprisingly taken off of YouTube. YouTube will automatically delete comments if it violates their guidelines, but I get an email of that so I could read the YouTube comment on Gmail, but I couldn't actually see it on the app. And I actually didn't see anything that was like horribly offensive, but it was to the effect of, hey, started off kind of nice, but led to their own thing. But it was, hey, I like your info. Your video was informative, but I really don't like the whole beginner pet thing. I don't like the beginner snake thing. People shouldn't get snakes or any pets or animals or whatever just because they're easy. They should only get animals that they truly love and are passionate about, and so they do all of that research on that animal, and that's the one they should get instead. And that kind of stuck with me a bit. Because I could see where they were coming from, but not so much agreeing with. And I'll get to that in just a sec. The other thing that happened this weekend was that my mostly neighbors, like relative neighbors, Colorado Gators, had the reopening of the new reptile building. So last year, if you all have been following me or live in Colorado and are interested in reptiles or just are aware of the existence of this place, they've been around for like 30-something years. 30-something years. Good Lord, I'm old. They had an unfortunate fire last spring where the main building where most of the reptiles, other than like the adult crocodilians, are kept, burnt down. And a lot of animals' lives were lost, which sucked. They, through, help from, the state and people in the community and donations, we did a lot of cookie sales and we were donating money from that. We bake saled it for them, right? As well as, we housed some of the animals and stuff. But they finally were able to rebuild this new reptile building, which, silver linings of that, sorry for the tangent, but, it's a new building with better infrastructure where there is not as much flammable stuff, where the wiring can be better, and there's updated and better caging materials and all these things. And there are already quite a few animals in there that have already been rescued and relinquished and stuff. But whenever there's like a big busy weekend or something, or like an event's happening at Colorado Gators, oftentimes they will ask Jay-Z, because they're a working farm and all these other things, can you come in and talk about reptiles? Can you bring in some of your own, talk about them, and answer questions about Colorado Gators and talk about that? And so I said, sure. So this last weekend, so Memorial Day weekend, the ribbon cutting was on Friday. I was there Friday, Saturday, because I can't be away every single day that long. I got my own farm and ranch to take care of, right? While I was there, the animal, I bring different animals each day, but I brought Fiero with me both days. And if for anyone who has been watching for a while, Fiero is my very special Burmese python that likes Sweet Home Alabama. He is the picture poster child for improper keeping and inbreeding. So Sweet Home Alabama, right? And, going over the backstory of how Fiero came into being and the circumstances of that I was left blissfully ignorant of until after purchasing him and dealing with his whole thing, really tied into the and not so much the circumstances of Fiero, but like talking about like the responsibilities of keeping and stuff. And that's the part that tied into that comment that was left. So for people who don't know about Colorado Gators, 96%+ of the animals in that place, so all of these several hundred gators and all of the crocodilians and caiman and snakes and stuff, those are all rescues or relinquishes or surrenders. Every single animal in that building, with the exception of a few of the tortoises, the caiman lizard, and that cockatoo tuco who likes to eat ears, those are all surrenders and rescues that primarily have come to that place since the fire, so less than a year ago. So I can tell you how many people are relinquishing and surrendering animals. It's a lot. And that is one of the things that mentality of that comment about you should only get this type of animal if you're passionate about it, that is an end result of that. And that is not the only end result of that mentality. And actually, since starting this video and recording it for like the third time, I actually watched one of my other associates, Nick Esposito. I think I pronounced your name last night correctly. If I did, Nick, I apologize. They made a really good response about something that was almost identical to the comment that was left. And it almost makes me wonder if it was the same person, because it's a small world, and they had a really good take on that. And so go watch their video if you want a more finite, condensed version of what I'm getting into. But so that is the one example. So tangent back again. So that's the one thing that happens, is that if you decide you want to get this one specific type of reptile, and as it turns out, you are not capable of handling that reptile, then it ends up in a bad situation, or hopefully it ends up in a place like Colorado Gators where they can do their best to take care of it. And that's the reality of the situation. But the more at-home, upfront part of that is, and this is what Nick touched on a little bit, is that there are reptiles and animals in general that experience and hands-on knowledge cannot be substituted with anything else, including book learning, researching, watching these informative YouTube videos. That cannot be substituted for actual experience with working with these type of animals. I have said before in the past where, I am capable of keeping most reptiles to a point where I have years of fundamental basis and knowledge and experience of keeping multiple species of reptiles, to where a species that I am somewhat aware of, I could keep well enough to be able to dial in correctly to the best of my ability for them. And that's actually happened to me in the past where, hey, we're getting rid of these animals, or I'm going to pick up this one certain animal, and I get there, and then a bunch more are unloaded on me, including species I've never touched before. And so even in quarantine, I'm able to put them into a position to where they're being kept well enough to where they're not overly stressed, and they're eating, and they're starting to adapt to their new environment, and I can dial in that as well as their, eventual final enclosures and habitats. But that's not something that just anybody can do. That does take a large amount of experience and knowledge. And the reality of the matter is that if you are getting an animal that you do not have the knowledge and experience of to take, that can be harmful to both the keeper and the keeped. So if you decide that you just love varanids, you love monitor lizards, and heck, even tegus, you watch what's the red tegu, MacGyver? I think it's MacGyver. I don't know if he's still around or not, but he was really famous for a long time on like TikTok and Facebook and stuff. And tegus got super, super popular. And you're like, I love MacGyver, and he's so cool, and he free roams and all this stuff. And then, but you've never had like a crested gecko or a leopard gecko or a bearded dragon, so you get a tegu. Now you have a 4.5-foot lizard that can be territorial, that can be very scared, can be defensive, can be dominant, that can do a lot of harm with his tail, with his claws, with his jaws. That is something that's very harmful. Or if you get as a little one, there's a good chance that he may not even make it to adulthood because you didn't have the knowledge of keeping reptiles in general, but let alone that, or you didn't have the experience and the skill set to keep that particular kind of reptile. Because, the knowledge is one thing where, you can read it, you can watch it, you can learn about it, but actually doing it are two entirely separate things. If you have, that's with lizards, because that's a very easy one to understand. The same things happened a lot with like iguanas and monitor lizards and, things like that. But, I'm a snake guy, so I can say this is a much more relatable one where, if you are super into reticulated pythons, where even in the concept up here, where you realize that even keeping like a mainland retic, that is not feasible. So you've already made that good move to that direction, but you've watched like Garrett Hartle's videos, Reach at Reptiles, and other people's videos are keeping the dwarf localities and the super dwarfs, and so you're like, okay, I've invested, you have the money to get one of those expensive animals, but you've never even kept like a horn snake or a ball python, because everyone likes to rag on ball pythons. You are going to do that animal an injustice just because you're aware of how intelligent they are and these things, but you've never done that. That can lead to a lot of behavioral issues. That can lead to a lot of social issues. That can lead to husbandry issues, where you can have a time where eventually, if that animal makes it to an adult size, that can still be a 7, 8, 9, 10-foot animal that can, as a reactive thing or something that you were misinterpreting, that can lead to a lot of harm to both you and the animal. Every single species of animal, specifically vertebrate, heck, not even vertebrate, like a lot of inverts too, like a lot of arachnids and cephalopods, they have very obvious body language that they are very good at telling you what they're thinking, how they're feeling. They are not just if then so mathematic blocky thinking animals. They can be very personable. They have been shown to form communities. They've been shown to have interpersonal relationships with other members of their same species and even other species. They're very intelligent animals. They can be emotional animals, and they're very reactive animals. And so if you don't have the skills and the knowledge and the on-hand experience of seeing those animals' body language, that can lead to dangerous situations where, in the best case scenario, they end up at a place like Colorado Gators. In the not so great scenario, bad things happen to you and them. And that is why that particular comment about, in, the nebulous space of perfect world or whatever, you are able to keep whatever one you like, regardless of what us keepers, the people with the knowledge and experience, theoretically, but I'll get to that in a second, deem as beginner, advanced, intermediate. You should just get whichever one you're super passionate about, that you dedicate a lot of time and energy into researching, but not actually hands-on learning about. That's what you should get, not one that's necessarily beginner or easy. And it just doesn't work like that. Now it brings us back to the thing I just touched on again, us keepers. There's a thing going around on a lot of groups and stuff right now that it's like, reptile keepers are allergic to facts or whatever, and that can be kind of true. We are really, really bad about gatekeeping stuff, and that's something that I've touched on before that we can't do in this particular scenario either, is that we cannot gatekeep. Now, with that being said, if you are a breeder of a more advanced species of reptile, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that you should just let any young person or any inexperienced person, because it's not just young people, any Joe Schmo on the internet or at a reptile show, buy your advanced species of reptile, your more in-depth species of reptile or amphibian or whatever it may have you, because that is a recipe for disaster. And more than likely, as someone who has gained a large amount of experience in keeping and breeding these more in-depth and advanced species, you already know that, and you're probably pretty good at gauging the vibe of those or the questions you need to ask for those. But to outright shut people out and not encourage or give advice to better set up future success for keeper and keeped, that's not something we can do. We need to do that latter. We need to encourage the growth in knowledge and skill. And sometimes, I've seen a lot of people ask for, like, can someone be their mentor? Can someone help them learn these things? Like on-hand learning, which is great. There is so much that is lost via just this medium here through the screen, where regardless of how confident or intelligent and well whoever it is, me or anyone else, is presenting, that does not translate to actually working with the animals. There is a great deal amount of knowledge, and that learning curve can be very steep in keeping exotic species, regardless of what it is, where there needs to be a base of knowledge to be able to keep animals successfully. Like, I've talked about where there's a beginner pet reptile, great for anyone who is just getting into keeping reptiles. I'm a snake guy, so I'll usually go with snakes. And then a good pet reptile, pet snake. And those are two different things, where a ball python, a lot of people will call them a great beginner snake, but I believe they are one of the best pet snakes, but not a good beginner snake. And that has to do with this learning curve, that experience that we're talking about. While they are very easily to handle, usually very placid, a manageable size, all these things that make a great pet, but their husbandry requirements are a very great basis for keeping other tropical species, but that learning curve can be steep. And that's why we hear so many stories, and we've seen so many examples of ball pythons with shedding issues, with behavioral issues, with eating issues, where they are not being kept properly because the people getting them, despite their, but a lot of times they are fixed, and we all go through that at some point. The first time I got ball pythons, it even took me a few times to realize that I'm not keeping properly, or I decided to change up a setup to do something different, and that didn't work. There is a learning curve to that, and most times, not all, and we're always seeing the negative, because that's what's presented as the negative. That usually it is corrected, but not always. And so that's why, if you are not able to keep a ball python husbandry wise, then you really can't be keeping something like a rainbow boa or a tiger rat snake or a super dwarf reticulated python, because there is a level of understanding that needs to be gained through experience of actually keeping them, of the husbandry, of the body language, of everything contextual that comes with keeping animals. And this is something that is not only applicable to reptiles. If you, like, so for instance, hopefully you all have watched the Reptile Ranch tour. If not, please go check out both parts. Super, super proud of the credits that I put at the end of part 2. If you haven't watched that, like, I might actually just make that its own thing, because like that was so much effort and time, and going back and thinking about all the people that have helped me over these last now 4 years almost. Shameless plug. But I keep the different dogs as well. We don't have just the reptiles here. We have a little ranch. We have livestock, and we have poultry and things, which I'm actually going to have to go pen the goats up for the night as soon as I'm done doing this. We have the different dog breeds. So we have, my partner's Basset Hound, that little whiny boy Tucker. We have Luna Bell, the St. Bernard, who is now going to be 10 years old this year, so she's getting up there in years. And then we have a lot of the livestock guard dogs, and then a couple of other mutts and stuff like Abby, the Akita Husky. The way that those breeds are, despite the fact they are the same species, they're still the same domesticated dog, are vastly different. Where how you would interact with a Basset Hound, how you train a Basset Hound, how you work with a Basset Hound or a St. Bernard is not the same as those livestock guarding dogs, where they are independent, they are stubborn, they are obstinate, and they are meant to work by themselves most of the time. And their job is to, hey, see those things? Don't let anything eat them. See you in a week. That is the livestock guarding dog. They're not meant to be handled like a border collie or a German shepherd or a lab. That's what the Pyrenees is. That's what the Antolian is. That's what the Kangal is. That's what the Ovcharka is. Those aren't the same thing. So, for instance, a very popular pet dog right now, like the Cane Corso or the Dogo Argentino, those dogs bred for hunting and fighting and guarding. Those dogs, if, anybody can have a dog. If you can, if you think you can go about working with that sort of dog the same way you would a lab, that I'm not saying always, because as mentioned previously, they are all individualistic animals, but there is a lot of bred in instinct and habit that goes into these different breeds of dogs. Like, dog aggression is something that is bred into some breeds of dogs. People don't like it when that is mentioned, but that's a real thing. Not to say that those are in the Corso and the Argentino, but that is a thing that is bred into dogs, is dog aggression, because they're meant for fighting. A proclivity for guarding things, a proclivity for having a high prey drive, for acting independently, working closely with people. Those are things put into different breeds. So even though you are really into that Cane Corso and you've watched the videos of the dog trainers and you've even talked to the breeder, like it's a well-researched thing, but you've never kept anything like that animal before. You've never really worked with anything outside of like, you know, your lab growing up when you were still living with your parents or whatever it is. That can lead to a very dangerous situation for both that dog and you. And we used to foster dogs. We used to work with rescue. I have seen firsthand the issues where an animal or a dog was not well kept, was not socialized, was bought without having any real knowledge. Not knowledge, again, I keep saying knowledge because knowledge is the research, the learning, but the experience of working with these more advanced breeds of dogs. And bad things did happen. There were times where I went to go pick up a dog and I was bit. A dog that I brought with me was bitten. The owner of the dog was bitten. So, and I don't know what happened to her. So, based on what that owner said after we kind of parted ways, where it said that I could not safely house that dog, and gave him a list of breed-specific rescuers, one even in the state. I don't know what happened to that dog, but it bit 2 people that day, at least. So that is something that was sticking around with me. I know that I'm winding down on a really somber, sober note, but that is the reality of it, where while that idea that you can just only work with this one species of reptile, and not just because it's easy to keep, that is a recipe for disaster on a lot of fronts, where the best case scenario is you luck out or it ends up at a place like Colorado Gators. A lot of times it doesn't. So while I think that that's a good idea, while that's nice, and once you have actual gained experience and working with these individual species of exotics or other species of exotics, and you grow your collection and you grow an experience, and then you work away from those more easy, air quote, species and move on to the ones that you actually enjoy, that's perfectly fine. That's great. But you need that actual hands-on experience and skill set first to do that, to be able to care for them properly in the way that they deserve and the way that you need to do it. Is your responsibility for them. And it is the responsibility of us more experienced keepers to encourage that. Not to say, nope, hit the road or figure it out on your own, because then that'll just end up in that situation. We can't just kick the can down the road and say, figure it out on your own. I had to figure it out on your own, because even if you did, would you recommend that? Really? So that is just kind of my thought on this one, that it's just something that, again, the snakes in the brain is just stuff happens as I go about my day that just ends up sticking with me. And so hopefully this gave everyone here something to think about. Maybe you've seen these situations before. Maybe it gives you something to think that you can suggest to do, or talk to whoever it is that you heard this from, or whatever may have you. When this comes out, it'll be Tuesday. If you all want to come see me, and you didn't get to see me at the new one in Castle Rock, the All-American one, I'll be in Loveland this weekend. And then at the end of the month, I'll be in Colorado Springs. We are still debating on whether or not I'm going to make the hike back out to Boise again, because that's a long drive. But otherwise, you can always email me. Let me know how you guys enjoy these videos. It's just been absolutely crazy. Nice stutter, Jay-Z. That it has just been back-to-back events, and more of my time is being filled up with like the baking as well as a lot of the other ranch care this year. It's essentially a lot of stuff needs to be upgraded because we're having the chance to do that this year that we had to put off the first couple years after moving here. That is monopolizing a lot of my time and energy. It's like back-to-back events and then doing all these other side projects. So these longer ones that I know a lot of you are here for, like the top fives and the species spotlights, it's just so much time and energy into doing that properly. And even then I still miss stuff. It's still coming. I'm still going to do it. It's just hard to dedicate, 3-4 hour blocks at a time to research and write and then even record and then edit. So if you still have ideas for that, please email me. I am still writing those down. If I can do them, I will absolutely do them. Sometimes it just takes me a while. So again, thank you all so much. I hope everyone is having a great day. Please like, subscribe, check out the other podcast. If you want to help support me on Patreon as well as just watching these videos, which is greatly appreciated, please do so. There's a bunch of different cool stuff. Thank you all so much. Hope everyone's having a great day, and we will check you next time.